Kelin Bebo, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You ready?
I think so. You seem ready.
Oh, I'm ready.
You came in ready this morning. I was like, all right, let's go to Crazy Town. You feel like you got something.
No, not Crazy Town. We'll get there. Like eventually.
We'll always go to Crazy Town.
For sure.
Yeah.
You get first crack at what's on your mind?
I feel like nothing I say will like.
No, don't do that. Don't put it through the filter of positioning. So, you got anything on your mind that's
okay? Random thought.
Yes.
Random thought on the way here. We all talk to ourselves sometimes. Do you ever find yourself talking out loud, like either to yourself or to something else?
I think it's really important psychologically to actually say the words that are in your brain. I think it seals the deal.
I have heard that it can be a sign of intelligence when people literally verbally talk to themselves. But here's where I think I cross over into maybe insanity.
Okay.
I was on the way to work this morning. And I'm driving down Western Reserve Road and there's like power lines across the road. And I see this bird like dive from the power line, flew down in front of a car, like about the windshield, almost like it was going to hit the windshield, fluttered in it, flew back up. And I said, "What are you doing?" Out loud to the bird.
Okay.
Was talking to the bird like like you would yell at a car if a car cuts you off and you're like, "What are you doing?" Said that to a bird this morning.
Why would you consider that insanity?
It doesn't seem sane to do.
All right, so give me your definition of sane. Now, to me, like saying something to something that's inanimate or a bird or whatever isn't the crazy part. Expecting a response one step further than that would be insanity.
I could see that.
If you were waiting for the bird to like talk shit back at you, that would be a different story. So you're tempting insanity by having a conversation, but as long as you know that it's a one-sided conversation, you're good.
Like I've done it where if I'm driving around and someone's got a dog like hanging out the window. And I feel like most people, when they see a dog or when they're out and about with other people, they're like, "Oh, hi there," blah, blah, and they kind of talk to the dog. But like, I am alone in a car. The dog can't hear me and I'll still be like, "Hi, doggy." And I was like, that can't be normal.
Well, it's not, but fortunately for us, like, let me give you the analogy.
Okay.
So when I didn't feel like I was a really smart person, right? Coming out of high school and
really
didn't feel like if you matched me up against my peers that, I was kind of like trying to hold my own, but not there. But the thing was, since probably the late 90s going into the 2000s, people started getting dumber. So I wasn't getting smarter. I was just holding my ground and the rest of the world just kept getting dumber and dumber and dumber. So it was an elevation through default is really what it is.
Can I relate to that?
So it's like, yes, by 20 years ago standards, you might be clinically insane. But since the whole world is insane, you became more sane just by not getting any worse.
Sweet.
So there you go.
Now I'm better.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
There you go.
Good to know.
All right. That was it? That's all you got?
That's all I got.
I did talk to a turkey the other day, by the way.
A turkey ran in front of me the other day.
Same here. I was
on
pissed.
Saturday? No. Sunday.
Mine was on Monday.
Sunday. This was Sunday. Where were you?
I was driving my kid to school. I was over in Austintown by New Road.
Okay, I was in Salem. And a freaking huge turkey ran out in front of our car.
Well, I was mad at him because I saw him, right?
Yeah.
And I said to him, "You better freaking stay right there because I'm going too fast and I don't want to slam on my brakes. You just stay freaking right there." And what does he do? Waddles his just cocky ass out into the road. I slammed on the brakes. I had some words for him.
Out loud?
Out loud, for sure. I was so pissed.
Oh my God.
And you know what he did?
This turkey sprinted at least.
And so when he was in front of me, he turned to me and spread his little turkey ass wings in front of me. He was just flaunting.
Talking shit.
Telling you. So
oh my God.
That was a bi-directional exchange.
What a coincidence though. We both almost hit turkeys in the same 2 days.
I rarely see turkeys. And then you and I are trying to mow them down on the roadways.
How often do turkeys just run out in front of you?
Maybe it's their season. Maybe turkeys are like trying to find some.
They're like,
turkey
hey,
love.
we survived the holidays. It's now spring. Feeling lucky.
Let's go have some turkey babies. And
gosh,
it's got to be that.
At least ours, like it booked it. Like it looked like he was like, I need to cross, and he ran across the road. Thank God. But we're like, how random. Freaking turkeys.
All right. Moving on from turkey talk.
That like just tuned in, and we're like, freaking turkeys. Like, what are they?
But everybody
about?
listening has probably had the same experience because turkeys. One day the world might be overrun with turkeys that have cocky attitudes like that. We might have. Did you see the example of the 100 people versus a gorilla deal?
No.
You didn't hear about this. All right, so let me pose the question to you.
Okay.
Silverback gorilla, really, husky animal, really strong.
Yeah.
And you have 100 men. Do you think the 100 men could take down the gorilla, or do you think the gorilla would easily kill all 100 men?
100 men.
Men. No weapons, hand-to-hand combat, strict advantage in the gorilla's corner.
I bet they could.
Okay.
I bet you could. 100 men, yeah.
All right. Give me the strategy, because we got to teach these men how to do men stuff. All right. So how do you... All right. So you have a kung fu movie, and what happens is the villain and the hero, or the villains, like the kung fu people. You know how they beat like 100 kung fu people?
Yeah.
It's because they take them on one at a time. Like one at a time. The other guys are standing back. They're just going like this, right?
We talked the other day about Kill Bill, and you saw the movie where she's fighting the crazy 88s, and I'm like, how lucky for her that it's like,
that they're just standing back watching, like waiting on my turn. Like,
yes.
So first thing is you got to have a how to do it strategy, like how you're going to, either you're going to gang rush the gorilla and take them all at the same time.
Yep.
In strategy wise, you'd probably want to tire the gorilla out. So I'm thinking the first minutes or hours is just meant to toy with or F with the gorilla to get him nice and tired, because you know what? You don't want to be the first person to make a move on the gorilla. All your punches and kicks and whatever are going to do absolutely nothing. He's going to tear you apart and, eat you. Right.
Well, my first thought was, get somebody maybe up on his back to gouge out the eyes.
That's it. You have to do a weaknesses and strengths, and don't attack on his strengths. You got to attack on the weaknesses.
Yes, you take out the eyes. He's lost his vision. You get the things. Maybe you get throat. Maybe you get things that will immediately hinder him, other than just his strength.
So tired, blind, right?
Yeah.
Now the advantage kind of shifted. I
feel really bad for saying that for the poor gorilla.
Why?
And I just feel really bad. Like, what'd this gorilla do to anyone?
Let's go beyond that.
Coming out again. I'm sorry. Go on.
All right. But even if you've got a blind, tired gorilla, then what? Like, they've got skin of leather and like they're still moving around, and you've got no weapons. Like, your fists are going to do anything even there. Like, how are you going to make the kill blow?
Yeah. Like, how are you going to bludgeon hard enough? Oh God, that's gross.
You would almost have to go primal and use your fingers to just scrape skin away until you get to tender parts. Like, I'd go neck. Like, I would just scrape neck.
Do you think they could squeeze hard enough to strangle?
No.
You think it'd be too big?
No way.
Ooh.
No way. So you would have to use your fingernails and fingers to keep scraping skin times 100 people until you get to fleshy, until you get to artery, until you get to the things that would take out the gorilla. Because you're not doing legs, you're not doing abdomen.
Could they all stand on his chest and crush him? The weight of 100 men?
I don't think you can create enough density unless you took one of those monkeys that kind of like stack on one another. It'd have to be sort of like that. Yeah, you're not going to create enough weight to crush Mr. Monkey. He's not a monkey, he's a gorilla, and I think he'd take offense to it. But anyway, it's got to be neck.
Could you just trap him and starve him to death? Or you don't have anything?
You don't have anything. Yeah. And that would take a really, really, really long time. So I think I have the answer. The 100 men, if they do it strategically, could take down the gorilla. But it's going to take cooperation and not taking them one at a time. Like, I'm thinking
So
You know,
gruesome.
I've watched gorilla silverbacks, and they're very territorial, and so you can use that against them and make him like charge at a bunch of people, and you might lose a couple of them. And I'd hate to be the guy that gets charged, but try to protect everyone because you're going to need those neck scrapers somewhere down the line.
Yeah. Oh, someone's for sure getting hurt. Like he might meet his demise, but he's taking someone out with him.
But it can be done. That's the point.
I would think.
Okay. Dan says, good morning, Patriots. Pat says it's hunting season for turkey.
That's
so the
why
hunters,
they're cray-cray.
Yep, they're pushing them out of the bushes.
Into the roads, apparently.
Yeah, and that guy was pissed. So he probably just had a run-in with a guy with a shotgun and he was mad at me.
Ooh, on 680 this morning on the way here, there was blood splattered all over the road. My thought went, wonder if that was a turkey.
Yeah.
Probably a deer, or something.
So speaking of it, I have this thought all the time when I'm running across roadkill. And when, like, if there was a person splattered on the road like that, we'd make a pretty good effort to
clean it up.
And
I thought that too.
But when it comes to animals, we're like, oh, sorry about that thing. And we just run it over time and time again and spread it out. It's awful to look at. But it's weird how we decouple. Right. We don't think about the animal as, you know, the human being would be one of us plus a mess. They're just a mess. Right.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, I did sort of think of that. Like my brain went to like, I wonder if this just happened because why would nobody have cleaned that up? I didn't see any carcass. So I'm like, well, either somebody moved it. Because I can't imagine it getting like eaten away to the point that you don't see it anymore, yet you still see blood everywhere. And oh God, just how gruesome. What made you think of the gorilla question?
I was just reading about it this morning. And so it must have been in some interview and they talked about it seriously. So I figured we would too.
If somebody could take 100 men could take down a gorilla.
Yeah. And if anybody knows, if they know where that came from, let us know. All right, local news. Michael Alberini. Did you read this story?
No.
Okay.
I don't know any of these things.
So this is a personal thing with me because I have lots of relationship interactions with Michael Alberini, the person. Mm-hmm. And a couple years ago, I would say 2023, he had an incident at his home where it made the news that he had some weapons and he was holed up in his house and there might have been a domestic disturbance of some kind. I don't know the whole story. I really don't. And so he got in trouble. He did some jail time, bounced back from it, had another incident with his vehicle, hit a rock and left the scene or something like that. So he's had a couple of run-ins where bad decisions
crashed into a rock, a big rock.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And so there's been some incidents that, since then, kind of a low profile, whatever. But anyway, FMJ published an article that he went back to court for something and he's got to spend like 6 more days in jail. And when I was reading the article, I mean, I know the dude, so I was kind of interested to see, how they were framing it, how they were talking about it. And man, did they gang tackle this guy. And the first thing I think,
it juicy.
The thing I think, and it was just the people reading the article, they were brutal. And I'm thinking, man, if I ever had a lapse in judgment, how much would this area defend me and give me benefit of the doubt? And how quickly would they just push me into the freaking pile?
Yeah.
Scared the crap out of me. It really did.
Like, would you see any grace or would you just be like, screw that guy? Doesn't matter if they've known you for years. Doesn't matter anything good you did.
I'm sure the public would be all about like high and mighty, whatever. And I don't know the details of it. I don't know the situation, how much guilt was there, how much bad, but I deal with addicts on a regular basis, right? I watch these people who do nothing but bad decisions and I try to help them not make any more and get their life back on track and, rehab from that.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm usually more empathetic to that and give grace because I cheer people to come back. We love an overcomer story, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, being that I don't have many details, and I'm obviously biased because I've spent many meetings with Michael, and I've never once thought, man, this is a dangerous dude who has problems that, needs to be in prison. He's a smart guy, and he has done everything everything to help me. I mean, I have no personal experiences with him being the guy that you read about in the article. So it leaves you in a little bit of a confused state when someone does something a little unexpected, or you learn something about somebody that's unexpected. But yeah, that was my takeaways from it.
So you don't get the sense like, obviously this is a more extreme example, but like you hear things about, really well-known mass murderers, and people say, well, they were nice and charismatic and sweet and helpful. Meanwhile, there's like dead bodies in their basement. You would not get that sense, right? Like, do you think it would just be, hey, something messed up as we all do?
I truly, being that I've known so many people in so many different walks of life that have those moments of that lapse in judgment, that there's not a profile for people doing dumb stuff. And half of what I believe in my insecurity about the people that are surrounding you is that I know everybody walks with those demons on a regular basis because it's so permissible in our culture to be able to do that. So I would be more surprised if I ran across a virtuous person that didn't have some kind of skeleton that would make me take pause.
Yeah. I mean, I feel everybody has something that they either currently deal with or have in their past that, other people would hear and instantly judge them on, and instantly think some kind of way on. Could you see yourself ever, like, my biggest thing is I think it's very hard to find loyalty, that group of people that no matter what you do, they give you grace. Maybe they don't tell you it's okay, but they get you through it. They don't shun you from it. They help you with it. It's very hard to not find people that will just walk away if something happened, if there was an indiscretion or something. Can you see yourself, or I guess for you, what is the point to which you then start to be like, maybe this person is not who I thought they were? Like, I gave him a lot of grace. I gave him a lot of chances. And I'm not talking about him in particular. I just mean in general. Have you ever come across someone where you're like, I really tried to help them to a point, and now I'm like, maybe they aren't a good person, and this is one that maybe should.
If I thought that they were so far different than everybody else, I might. But the biggest checkmate that I get with myself is you might take a story like Michael, who I know him personally, and you take the same story and make it about a random person in Cleveland, and my judgment would do exactly, because I don't know him, right? Never talk to him, but I would be more likely to buy in to the pile-on if I didn't know them than if I just had a meeting with him last week. Because it's like I said, that conflict is like, well, maybe I should have a little bit more, take my judgments and suppress them a little bit on everybody, regardless. Because I've talked some smack about people that have never even been to court, and it's just been accusations. My brain immediately went, well, that's probably a bad person then.
Yeah, and I think we all, especially something you read in the media, number one, I feel like you almost maybe do need to distrust a little bit, because obviously a juicier story is going to get more attention than just hey, somebody messed up. They're a good dude. They made a mistake and we're going to move on. That's not how a media story is going to present it.
Right.
And so maybe take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, on the other hand, it's almost like all they have to do is put the idea out there that maybe they did something terrible. Are they a terrible person? Well, now you start thinking maybe so, even if it's like, oh my God, that's not even how it happened, and now their reputation is destroyed over what?
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, that's chum in the water. That's just what the media will do. And I think you learn a lot about who your friends are when something like that happens, how quickly you are put in that pile.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does make me suspicious of everyone at that point, because I know how quickly I would get buried. I know it. I absolutely know it.
Oh, yeah. And I've had instances before where like maybe there was somebody I was friendly with that sort of just like, not like ghosted, but like distanced themselves, didn't talk to them as much, didn't see them as much. And then time goes by and a conversation happens and they're like, well, I had heard that you did A, B, or C. And I'm like, and you believed that? Like, you've known me? And number one, you believed that, which is completely out of my character. And two, why would you not ask me? Like, where was the loyalty to be like, hey, I heard this happened? And let me tell you, no, that's total bullcrap. It didn't, or it did, and here's why, or something. Like, to me, that speaks a lot, I think, about the other person. Is at what point do you then abandon anything you thought you knew about someone and trust the rumor, trust the other source that you don't know?
Yeah. And if someone were to make a mistake, so let's just say an addict, stole from his, this was probably I had some biases when I was super young and into this business. One of my mentors, he also worked with recovering kids in addiction. And this 17-year-old kid got kicked out of school, had no family. The guy was putting him up, and he hired the kid to come into his office, who was a known and proven thief. And this guy, Corky, said, I was like, aren't you afraid that he's going to come in here and freaking wipe you out? And he was like, I'm okay with it. I'm giving him the opportunity to bounce back from it. So a computer went missing, right, overnight. And when I came in, the laptop was gone. And I was like, hey, the dude was cleaning overnight. Your laptop's not here today. And he questioned him on him. And sure enough, he stole the laptop and he sold it, and he bought alcohol with the laptop. And I was like, all right, well, that's not going to help the case of this guy who wants to help kids out.
Yeah.
The next week, this kid was in the office cleaning again. And I said, are you insane? This kid is just going to steal again. He said, I have enough, stuff now that I would never trust this kid again. But because I'm willing to believe in him one more time and give him a shot one more time, this might be the episode that breaks the bad behaviors. If I have to lose a couple laptops over changing a life, I'm totally willing. That stuck with me, because I'm like, I wouldn't be willing, with somebody who had a high probability of making another mistake, to put my stuff at risk, but that dude was. And so that at what point do you want to cast somebody off as soon as you know they did something that makes them a bad person? And how will you stick with them and help them recover through it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, to me, that almost sounds like being in an abusive relationship. Yeah, they did this to me, but I can change them. But I think they're a good person. And then they do it again. But I don't want to leave them. And it's like, at what point do you just need to get out of the abusive relationship? Do you know if that kid stole again?
He didn't steal again.
Oh,
no, he didn't.
Seemed like that would be such a great situation. But I would probably be like, well, let him go do it.
Well, and the way that the addicts work, they never change those behaviors until they hit the bottom of the barrel and they have no other choices. So they have to be forced into it. So they have to break every relationship and lose all of their money and go to jail a bunch of times.
They got to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, and then they go to a recovery center that takes all of that away, and then they start earning the permissions back into their world. And so I think, one of the criticisms of the Michael Alberini is that his sentence and his punishments were not great, right? They weren't excessive. They didn't feel heavy enough to change behaviors. So again, like, I didn't see the guy that would do those things in the first place, but I could picture most of us could be in some of the same situations that he was in. And, would he be what I would consider rehabilitated when I didn't see those things either? So if you were in an abusive relationship and guy hit on you a bunch of times, in the bad way, not hit on you, and you were like, he apologized, knew he was wrong, went and saw a therapist, would you be willing to invite him back in with the potential of it happening again? And at what level would you defend him?
We don't know. It's hard when you're not actually in it to say what you would do, I guess. Cause you
don't have a rule set, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It would be weird. Knowing what I know about myself, I feel like I would always be on edge. Like, if I let him back, I'd probably always be like, okay, are you doing it again? Are you going to do it again? Like, I don't know if I could relax and trust. Yeah, I've always said, like, I used to say, like, literally to people out loud, like, a guy doesn't even have to hit me. You don't even have to lay a hand on me. If I think you might, we're done. If I have to think, maybe, I don't trust that you won't, I'm not even in that situation, I'm out. But I've never actually been in it. So who knows? Maybe
Right.
people talk a big game, but then when you're in it or you're deep in it, and then you're like, oh God, well, maybe I do have to put up with a little bit. I don't know. What would you do?
I'm a logic person. And so in a relationship, like it would be, I wouldn't have ill will towards anybody. I just don't come after people. I don't want to hurt them. If they make a mistake, I won't be close. I won't put my stuff in danger, but I also won't really spend the energy to destroy them or get justice or whatever. They will just disappear. They will die in my sphere is small anyway.
Yeah.
And so like you're in forever. But if you don't deserve it, you're out forever. And then somebody else is in. So.
This kind of makes me think of a situation I saw an old boss in. You're a business owner. You have employees. Let's say you let an employee go and they're like awful. Maybe they're terrible. They don't work. Maybe they stole, maybe they whatever. 100% like you are fired, get out of my business. And then you get a call from another job they've applied for and you're a reference.
Mm-hmm.
And they ask you, what do you think of this employee? Are you on it? Or are you just like,
Well, my rules, it happens all the time. And I say, I do not have anything positive to add to the referral. I'm probably not a good referral.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say, air that, because I have a rule that if that the person has to be in the room for me to talk about them so they can put their side of the story. You ever meet with like a girlfriend that's having a rough time with their husband and they give it to you and they're the hero. Like they didn't do anything wrong. They're lily white. But then you talk to the husband and then you're like, oh,
yeah, you're like, wait a minute. So that's why he did this.
So I don't want to make judgments based on one side of the story. And I don't want anybody else to make judgments the same way. So unless that person is sitting there, I will say the things if they're sitting there so they can rebut anything that I've said. Otherwise, I shut my hole because it's just gossip if you don't.
And I think that speaks loudly enough too. This other boss I had, he would tell me the same thing. He's like, if somebody called me and they're like, hey, you're a reference for so-and-so, would you think? He was just like, you know what? I'd rather not say anything.
Yeah, that's
sorry, but I'm not going to say anything.
And
that I
you
think
would
to
read
them
between the lines.
Yes.
Like you would know that if I wasn't glowing and whatever, I'm not going to blow smoke up one way and I'm not going to go after someone who's not in the same room with me. And that speaks everything that they needed to know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Jerry says, I don't admire many of the reporters in our area as they love to sensationalize the simple faults of others and love to rehash stories or incidents. I have seen personal tragedies become rehashed a year later and the media knew it. I would have a negative effect on many people, yet they still reran the story after they said they would not do it. Even put a trailer line at the bottom of the screen throughout the news hour to make sure it was seen. Good news never overshadows negativity. And let me defend the media a little bit. Most of them are just working a job, right? They are trying to make what they do in an 8-hour day relevant. And when there's not much happening and you've got red meat in front of you, very few of those people are professional or have integrity enough to pass on the thing that hurts a person. Right. They're feeding their career with talking about something that will give them relevance. And that's.
Yeah. And the idea that bad news sells is very true. And that's not just on the media or the people reporting the bad news. That's on us as consumers
100%.
That we eat that stuff up. You see a negative headline, a scary headline, a juicy headline. You're going to gravitate to that every day of the week compared to, oh, here's something really nice that happened. That's nice. But it's not going to sell their product. And that's us. That's human beings, unfortunately. Yeah. And I don't know how you change that.
You don't. If you had a restaurant that sold healthy food versus food that was poison and tasted good, and the restaurant or the server gave you exactly what you asked for, you aren't shocked and mad that the person gave you exactly what you were after. They didn't try to serve you the vegetables because that's not what you wanted. They gave you exactly what you asked for. So I look at this from the consumers are awful and everybody is awful. So the evidence that all we do is awful things should not surprise or shock. So if we nitpick one awful person out of everybody being awful, it's an unfair assessment.
So
So
in situations of, hey, something was made public, something they did sounds awful, maybe proven, not proven. What do you do with cases like Casey Anthony, for example? Can you see Casey Anthony in a completely unbiased way, knowing she wasn't convicted of anything, she didn't go to jail?
In reality, though, I don't care enough to even put energy into it. So if somebody like asked me a quiz show whether or not I thought she was guilty or whatever, I would say, I don't care. Like the brain space for things that I'm not personally attached to, I don't care.
If you were single and you met a woman and you started dating and you kind of like her and you found out that it's Casey Anthony, would you feel some kind of way about getting married, having kids?
I would investigate. I would really use that as a data point to be able to make decisions, but I wouldn't rely on things that I know are sensationalized and exaggerated. I want to know the real story. And again, that's the same thing where, I have to be objective on it and weigh it without just buying in because Kelin told me about it, right? Isn't good enough for me to make a decision on it. It's a starting point, but I can't make a decision on it. Especially when I've seen people get unfairly bashed for just because either through jealousies or axes to grind or whatever. And think about all the people that buy into those axe grinding stories and then they believe it too, and they don't have a real reason to believe it.
Yeah.
Dale says, according to local news supervisor, they don't have to fact check their info if it comes from a person that they consider reliable.
I have seen articles where they say a source close to so-and-so says, maybe they don't, if they don't present it as factual information, they could probably do that all day long. If they're like, we heard this, so-and-so told us this.
Hold on. Listen, facts and truth are the vegetables in my restaurant. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't want facts and truth. I can prove this 1,000 times. So us saying those news agencies, they should only peddle in truth and facts. Yeah. You don't want that. And that's why they don't do that. And they only do what they have to. And the rules for reporting truth are BS at best. So don't get all pearl clutching over media sources or
not being totally truthful.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, have you seen, I just saw yesterday, the White House has added a new, I don't know what they call it. You know how they have like the media room where they do a media updates and Caroline Leavitt, whatever, will come out and sort of update the media. That is one room. There's I think they said the South Wing or whatever they call it. It's the something auditorium. She does the same thing, but it's all new media, influencers, podcasters. It's not the mainstream outlets. It's all others that they're now doing now. Same thing, goes in, gives updates, takes questions, whole different. Have you seen this?
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about that?
All right. So I had a conversation with Grok yesterday, about a 15-minute conversation with AI. While I was doing my notes.
I was like, Grok the robot, the AI?
The AI, yeah. And I asked it a question that was one of the more polarizing questions that could be in politics, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, do you report biases? And it said, I try to be as objective as whatever. And I source my information from multiple trusted news sources. And I said, can you tell me the top 5 trusted news sources or what you would consider trusted news sources? And it listed 5, and 3 of them were objectionably biased agencies. And I said, what if your trusted news sources give you a story that is untrusted? How do you know how to trust? How do you know that they're trusted? And we went through this whole long conversation, and we'll use one of the ones where you had the BBC, you had the AP, you had, we'll say, Fox News and whatever. And I said, if Fox News ever came out, thank you, sir, with a biased story, what would you do to the next story that you released? And they said, it said that if it was a biased story, the weight of that news source would be reduced. So the future stories will be put through the filter of that bias. And I asked it, well, what if they released thousands of stories and only one of them was biased? And they said that the weight would be proportional. So if I'm a news agency and I release a lot of stories, then I could put a bunch of them in there that are totally biased, and my weight wouldn't change because of the volume of the stories that I release. Okay. And so to answer your question about the new media, more samplings of more different. So if we took 10 different trusted news agencies and all reported the same thing, right? Then the AI would be able to say, well, it's probably an accurate story because nobody deviated from the original story. But if you took new media and old media, and old media has a weighted average that is far superior to the new media, the one that puts out 10 stories a day versus 1,000, then if they say something different, it would almost be like their vote in the story only counts as one vote, and the AP counts as 1,000 votes. And so they lose that. So it's going to take reducing. So let's just say Fox News has a news section of their reporting, and they have an opinion section. I would take all of the opinion and not receive one story for weighted average on opinion because it's just somebody's opinion. You ever listen to NPR's news and you can't figure out what NPR feels about it? They just gave you data without the angle
really
on it.
Listen to NPR, but
yeah,
that would be interesting.
So NPR has a way of reporting stuff where they don't have voice inflection. They don't have
just like this.
It is just the data, and then you have to take the data and decide what to do with it. Well, that's going to confuse a lot of our dumber people in the population because they need to be told if they should be outraged, if there's an angle on this they should take, and whatever. But I hope in the future we have so much of samplings of information and really technical ways of weighing that information so that I don't care how you feel about it. Just give me the data, what it is. Like if somebody said, hey, the economy grew at 7.8%, right? Now if you don't know anything about the economy, is that good? Is that bad? I mean, how do I feel about this?
Yeah.
But if I said the economy set fire to things and really blew away the estimates at 7.8, now you would be cued in to know if that's good or not. But it was populated. It was urged by how the story was reported.
Oh, yeah. I saw that so many times when there was that whole office meeting with Zelensky and Trump and Vance. You could have said meeting in the Oval Office with Zelensky, Trump, and Vance to discuss ABC. No, it was heated argument between Trump berates Zelensky. And I was like, you're flat out telling me how I should have taken this interaction when I could have just watched the interaction and taken what I feel I saw and witnessed and heard. And I hate that. I hate when I see an obviously biased report. That to me is when I'm like, nope, you're opinion based. You're not a real source. And I was a little skeptical maybe when I saw part of this video of Carolyn addressing this other media room, because immediately the first questions that came out were very complimentary to them. You could tell it was almost like people just fanboying and fangirling over this.
Just happy to be there, and I don't want to make you mad at me, so you invite me back. Yeah.
And I was like, you all love them. Obviously, we're going to fill a room with this biased sources that love us. And then I went, or are we actually seeing the people that have nothing to gain by bashing them, who are truly just looking at facts? And I can't help it if the facts make more sense and might be a good thing. And, so it's like, I don't know. I don't know who all is in that room. I don't know if this is just their little bias room that's just going to tell them, sing their praises and ask questions that are flattering and say things that paint them in a good light. Or does it seem that way because all the negativity who is paid to be negative isn't there?
So we have the AI pick reporters and we put them in their political box, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are a Democrat and will always be biased for the Democrats. You are a Republican and always will be biased there. We take those two people and we put them in the same room. Without those two people in the same room asking that question and can't challenge those other things. So the Republican, as long as it doesn't get to insults and character assassinations, if it's just data driven, through that friction and that pressure, you come to an idea of what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, you have the husband and wife and they both get to tell their story, and then me as the listener get to weigh your biases because you haven't, you obviously have a favorite in this race, but I can kind of hybridize the two of them and come to my own conclusion. So the liberal media, which was 90% of everything that you hear on the airwaves, doesn't have a counterweight with enough conservative opinion on it to push back. So I'm not going to believe you, and I'm not going to believe you. I'm going to have you two fight, and whatever comes out of the fight that survives the scrutiny, that's what I'm going to believe. And I think in the future, AI could do that if we can do a couple things. Number one, we could, kind of re-educate the public to not buy into the drama, right? Which,
good luck.
not going to happen. Be satisfied with the boring, right?
Yeah.
Just the data, which again will never freaking happen. And have everybody just be honest about who they are. Go up to a Democrat who's a reporter and tell them that they are a liberal news agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how hard they will defend that. I don't have bias. I report the news, right?
Yeah,
that would be an insult. But if we have AI look at you, everything that you say, everything that you talk about, and whatever, put you in that box, and that's where you are, and then just be honest about it. And that way, when I say I am a X, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know what filter it's being put through, but they're in denial that they want to say, no, I can be objective, even though that I've never thrown a nice thing at Trump and never taken a shot at Biden. And I gave to liberal causes and I voted Democrat and all of my compatriots are all Democrats as well. I'm not in a bubble. You're stupid.
Yeah. And I often will ask people, like, if I'm in a discussion with someone and we're not seeing, eye to eye, and most likely it's probably a political discussion against someone who feels differently than me, I always lead with asking them why the person you don't like did what they did. If someone's like, oh, he said this and he said that, I go, why? Why did they say that? What do you mean? I was like, clearly that upset you that they said that. Why did they say it? What was their point? Well, I don't know. Well, then what are you mad about? You don't even know what they meant by it. You don't even know why they said it. Where was the context? What were they talking about when you heard that one snippet of information? Well, I don't know. Well, then why are you mad? Oh, because you were led to believe that they are bad and they do this. And so you heard this much info and saw it through that lens. If you can't tell me why this person is doing this and still disagree with them, you may. That says to me, you're just being led around by this narrative of bad guy, good guy, trust him, don't trust him, and you're not actually thinking for yourself.
Oh, you just described 90% of the people around you. So stop believing in people, Kelin. That is be a cynic. Stop believing in people. Know they're all bad. Know they've always are looking out for number one, right? Everybody's bad.
I don't know. I don't think you can say that. We just talked about not everybody's bad. Sometimes they just mess up. When are you going to give them grace?
On the aggregate, personal relationships in which you are like if you went and had a sit down like Bill Maher did with President Trump, I don't care if you hated him, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are personal and you had the conversation, you might come away with that thinking everything you knew about him was what you learned through the media And all of a sudden there's just this dude over there, and I hate him less because it got personal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's so important to be in personal and have contact with the person that you're judging.
Yeah, it was interesting. Years ago when I was living down south, I think it made national news, but I don't know if you guys heard about it up here. There were bad tornadoes that went through Lee County, Alabama, and was pretty devastating to that area. And it wasn't far. It was like maybe 15, 20 minutes from where I worked. And luckily I wasn't affected by them, but this town that we did a lot of business in was. And Trump was president at the time. Trump came and met with the mayor of the town. And I remember sometime later after he was gone, where I used to work for a chamber at the time, and we were doing some stuff there with the mayor, and he was talking about Trump's visit. And I was like, ugh, don't even get me started on that guy. And he's like, no. And I said, seriously, that dude needs punched in the face. What a jerk. And he's like, he is not. And I was like, what? You can't tell me he's not. Look at this. Look at that. Look at it. He's like, I am telling you, when he came here and he met with us, he was the kindest, most genuine, most giving person. He listened to us. He was, very this and that. And he described him. And I'm just like, but there's no way. Like, I see him on TV acting a certain way. There's no way. And he's like, I'm telling you, that's not him. That was not him. He was such a nice, gracious person. And I was just like, could everything I think be wrong? And then that got coupled with other instances of people talking about that. And I was like, huh, all right, I guess I'll do some more digging and see. And yeah, you got to be willing to kind of hear other people's views and not just write them off because they saw something or heard something or took something a different way than you did.
Yep. People are far too stubborn and confident in what they think they know, for sure. And that's one of the biggest objections, especially, when the COVID stuff was happening, right? It was very unpopular to push back on the status quo. Now, I wasn't willing to take people who disagreed with me, and I would, because I didn't know anything. Nobody knew anything, and I knew nobody knew anything.
Yeah.
But I knew that I was so unconfident that there's no way I'm going to challenge you personally for your decision making. I was going to just make up my mind, and I wasn't going to come after you. But the other side was so confident. They didn't care about rooting relationships and going after people personally because they were so secure in what they thought they knew. I was at least objective enough to sit back and say, well, maybe I don't have all the information, or maybe somebody is guiding me, or maybe it's just all bullshit. And if I go along with somebody else's point of view on it, they're going to leave me out to dry, right? And I'm not going to look around saying, but I trusted you. Why are you not saving me? Because I don't think people are that way.
Jeff says the only cure for Trump derangement syndrome is meeting Trump personally.
Yep.
Or considering other people's views, maybe who have.
Yeah. Or just considering you don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
And until you know firsthand your knowledge, right? Not second or third hand. It's just freaking gossip. And we don't trust gossip.
Yeah. And I feel like when it comes to politics right now, people are trying to make us so, polarized and against each other, and you're this or this. And I use RFK Jr. a lot simply because he was someone that I got really interested in. And you have this narrative of people on the left that are like, oh, he's dangerous. He's going to make everyone question vaccines. And then we're going to have outbreaks of deadly diseases because he's anti-vax and he's teaching all these women, all these mothers to distrust. And I'm like, I'm a mother. I like RFK Jr. I listen to what he says. I in no way have ever told a doctor, don't give my kid this, don't give my kid this. I've just said, I want to look. I want to see first. I want to hear about stuff. Am I saying no more vaccines, no more medicine, no more? No, not at all. But I am interested. I want to hear what he has to say. But no. It's you're either with them or against them, and you're all in or all out. And I'm just like, that's so inaccurate
and cultish and jealous. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Moving topics.
Okay.
All right. So the Amazon stuff yesterday, there was a tariff fight between the White House and Amazon.
Yeah.
And it was reported, again, not confirmed but reported, that Amazon was going to start publishing the tariff portion of orders, right?
Yeah, the percentage of what you're paying came because of a tariff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that. Okay. What I don't like it because it was a middle finger out of one particular thing. Okay. To me, transparency is about when the consumer knows, right? If I say, here's a plate of spaghetti and I'm going to tell you where everything came from, right? Because I want you to have all the information so that you can choose. So if I went through Amazon and there were little flags there that said what I was buying was supporting people that lived in my neighborhood or in my country, I might buy from them ahead of something that came overseas, China, or the spending my money with people that I don't know or aren't part of my community, right? But if I just took a piece of what I was serving you, I didn't really want you to know everything. I don't want you to know all the sausage, but I don't like this one dude, right? So I'm going to just tell you about that thing because it has some political, energy to it.
Yeah.
That's a dick move. All right. And that's not really how what consumers would be interested in.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me because, the press secretary, God, did she even use the word warfare or something? She was like basically saying this is a jerk move, something Bezos is doing just to try to push back. We don't agree with it. He's just being kind of a jerk about pointing out, hey, here's the cost, but here's what it is now because of a tariff. And what I say is, well, how interesting, because wasn't the narrative before that Trump is only helping billionaires and he's only giving them tax cuts and Jeff Bezos and all these billionaires are going to be in his pocket? Well, then why would Bezos be like, F you, Trump, I'm going to show everyone what you're doing to my business? It almost doesn't fit that narrative anymore then, number one. And number two, I got mixed feelings about it. We all know that if the price goes up for something, it could be because of the tariffs. To single it out and directly state it feels a little passive aggressive, feels a little I'm trying to stick it to the man kind of thing. But like you said, I already know it's there. I already know it's happening. I know why it's happening. And is it a good thing? Like, did you say
if every product was like, you're supporting China, you're supporting Vietnam, then every consumer's like, I don't want to do that. So that would be a play on helping and supporting the Trump administration to get more of consumer dollars to go to United States companies. It's giving you an advantage. I've actually went to websites that do a library that I only want to purchase American goods. I'm looking for X, and it points me directly to a product that is made in the United States so I could spend my dollars there when I want to spend them. What Amazon should be embarrassed about is how much foreign purchases they enable to happen, and you don't even know that it's freaking happening.
Oh, yeah. Like, how many times do you buy something on Amazon and it's not at all how it looked in the picture? It's not at all the quality you thought. It's some cheap foreign crap. It was also in the news that Shein, have you heard of Shein?
Yes.
Their prices could be going up.
Good.
And I was like, oh, the foreign piece of crap that you order for $2 on Shein. Like, why do you think it's so cheap? I almost want to be like, this doesn't sound like really bad things are happening. It sounds bad when you say things are more expensive because of Trump's tariffs, and obviously nobody wants to spend more money.
But there's more to this story. So if you just wanted to say Trump is doing this and he's making your things cost more, if you do the rest of the story, you're buying this product, Trump made it cost more. The only reason it's cheap is because the person made it is in a communist country where they're in slave labor and making $1 a day. Enjoy that purchase. Now I get it. Now, if you're like, I'm a bad person and I don't care about slave labor, I don't care about supporting other economies, I want to buy that thing for $1 instead of the guy down the street who's putting his kids through school and it costs $10. Give me the slave labor all day.
Yeah. And when my kid has a school fundraiser because they got to buy uniforms for their sports team, and I go to my local businesses to help us with the fundraiser, I wonder why he doesn't have any money to help.
Go to China and ask them to support your baseball team because that's where you spend all of your money this year.
Go to China. Go to Jeff Bezos. Go to all these places. Going to be like, hey, would you buy some candy bars to support our... Nope, sorry.
Yeah, so if you're going to go the ruthless route, go the full way. You were just very particular about who you went after in that moment, because the Amazons of the world, they can't shuttle, cheap crap if we're protecting American companies. Half their business disappears tomorrow.
And then people,
so that's selfish.
They forget how one thing affects another, regardless of the pretty bow it's in. Like, I remember years ago, Obama was president, and I was at work, and this HR person was showing me that my paycheck was going to be a little more than it used to be. And I'm like, what? And she's like, well, yeah, so Obama just passed a something. They're taking out fewer taxes on this paycheck, so you are taking home more pay. And I went, well, that's great. Thanks, Obama. And then it was like, keep in mind, you're going to pay that later. Like, this isn't for letting you keep money. You're welcome. This is take it home now and pay it later. And so I think we forget that depending on the nice little bow and package it's shown to you in, you don't realize what it also affects.
Private business, if they did that stuff, would go to jail. Like if I gave you a free meal and stole your watch, that would be illegal, because that's what scammers do, is they make you think one thing and distract you over here while they steal things out of your pocket on the other way.
Yeah.
That would be freaking illegal. So Julie says, all I know of Trump is what he says and does. His actions tell me all I want to know. He's an a-hole.
What he says and does on TV? Because that's a totally different thing than what he says and does.
Yeah. Is there another side of Trump that isn't in front of the camera that you would say, huh?
Yeah.
He's
because
not
I found quite a few instances of things he has done that he said, I don't want attention for this. I am not putting media coverage on this. He was doing it out of the goodness of his heart, that they know nothing about.
Well, and I can't sanitize the things that he says publicly, because he is a professional troll. And when you troll, you are due the bad feelings. But I don't think, no matter if he came out there and, as he said in his State of the Union or supposed State of the Union, cures cancer, if Julie would be like, oh, you know what? Go Trump. Like, I don't think he's not catering to the Julies of the world. So he's trying to make you mad.
Yeah, he does. He can come off as a pompous, arrogant jerk. But at what point do you get smacked in the face for anything you say and do that you then no longer care? Yeah. Like, hey, you're going to feel some kind of way about me regardless. Fine. I'll just feed into it. I'll just say ridiculous things. Like, I think a lot of that is him, at least lately. Trump said what he was going to do before the election. He has done everything he has said or is working on it. Few politicians do that. I agree.
I cannot disagree with that. He has a way of coming through. But I do have one objection on that. Okay. He sets himself up by making outrageous claims of how he's going to do it. Like, he's going to go into Russia and on day one, he's going to make peace happen. Yeah. Or we're going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, I'm like, I know what he just said. Right. And if I take all of those letters and say, there's no way to do that.
Yeah.
Why would you say it in a way that enables the people who are your critics to come back and say, Mexico, we didn't pay for it. You didn't end peace on day one. Eggs didn't come down on us. Taxes, inflation, like everything is this exaggerated version of it.
There was a guy speaking yesterday with Carolyn. I can't remember what his position is or what his name is, but he was giving an update on a lot of things too, because it was like the first 100 days. And somebody brought that up. Well, he said Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Do you still stand by that? And he did this whole rigmarole. It was like, well, technically, Trump did this, which saved us on this, which caused Mexico to do this, which affected money in this way. So, i.e., Mexico helped pay for the wall. And I was just like, okay.
That's trying it real hard.
Okay.
Now, if Trump said, we're going to build this wall, and there's going to be 20 things that happen that are going to make that wall valuable because of all those things that happen, then you know that it's complicated and it's 19 steps.
Yeah.
But he says it's simply like, everybody's stupid and I'm going to come in there and I'm not stupid and I'm going to solve this on day one. And we're like, well, mathematically, That is not going to happen, and you know it.
And I could see him maybe getting to the point where and absolutely it could be ego for sure.
Oh, 100%.
And I also think it could be, look, I've tried the whole let me explain how my plan works, and you guys jump all over me without even trying to understand it. So I'm just going to say, I'm doing this. I'm doing that.
Yeah, and it feels like troll bait when he says that, because he knows exactly that he's going to do the thing. It's going to take longer. Like Elon Musk, right? He's famous for doing this. He'll take an innovation in his head. He's like, we're going to have self-driving cars by 2020, right? Yeah. And I'm like, why would you put a date on it? It buys you nothing. And then if you're late, everybody will say, where's your self-driving cars, right? But in his head, he, in a perfect world, this all happens a certain way, and gets excited about the prospect of it happening in the perfect way. But why do you bring that shade on yourself? All you had to say is, we're going to have self-driving cars pretty soon, right? That's all it would have taken.
Yeah, I just saw somebody posted online recently. It was a quote from Al Gore from 2006 or something like that. And it said, we have 10 years left to avoid a major environmental disaster. Basically, like, Earth is so bad, we got 10 years to clean up this issue, or this will look totally different. Well, obviously more than 10 years has gone by, and now that looks as though it was like a crying wolf kind of thing. So yeah, to that point, it's like, if you truly believe that Earth is in a bad way and we need to take some steps to clean it up and we need to do whatever, if you go so far to be so bold as to put a date on something and that date comes and goes, that could make you look real bad. And now nobody's going to trust.
I've never defended Al Gore before, so let me defend him. So he probably was in a room with a bunch of environmental sciences people, and he was looking at a spreadsheet that had the CO2 levels and the rising sea levels, and it graphed it so that here's where it is now, and if all things stay the same, here's what it's going to be in 10 years. And he looked at it and said, holy crap, a really smart person just gave me data that says in 10 years this is going to happen. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to say it out loud because that's what the spreadsheet told me was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So he vouched for data that somebody fed him. So in the future, he'd be like, he can throw the scientists under the bus, right? And say, well, they said it, like the George W. Bush weapons of mass destruction, right?
Yeah.
He didn't come up with that. He was told that by someone else, I'm sure. Or like, have you ever heard any reporters ask Al Gore why he missed his mark and give me a defense for why you were wrong about the 10-year estimation? Anybody ever asked that? Because that would be my question.
Yeah, I don't know. Not that I've seen, but
kind of laid the cover fire down for Mr. Gore.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bottom line is Trump tries to get things done rather than hiding for 4 years. That's absolutely true. And Dennis says, and they all buy oceanfront property while screaming the oceans are rising. Listen, insurance companies, right, would never allow you to build in an area where there was an absolute probability of loss. So if you want scientific truth from what's about to happen, look for the actuaries at insurance companies for what's likely to happen. That's going to be your best unbiased math because they don't want it to happen.
That's a good point. Julie says, how do you feel about the cryptocurrency scam? How about eliminate funding for FEMA, but including $300 million to fund his golf game? How about sanctioning the deportation of citizens? I could go on.
Okay, I don't know the cryptocurrency scam.
I don't either.
I know before he became president, they did a fundraiser using a Trump coin. Don't really consider it a scam. I think all of those altcoins and whatever, like Haktua tried it and it went south, and it's a big risk. So I heard that he did it. I didn't hear any fallout from it. It's usually a pump and dump where somebody sells it and it goes way high, and then the person that originated it sells out, and then everybody's left holding the bag. If that happened, I'm sure we would have heard that, the Trump. I'm going to look that up here when you start talking next and see it. So that's my response to it. I don't really agree with you that it's a scam at this point.
Eliminating, and I've heard this before, eliminate funding for FEMA, but including $300 million to fund his golf game.
Where do we get the $300 million to fund his golf game?
I don't know. I've heard a couple people saying like, oh, Trump was supposed to be paying attention to this, but he decided to go golfing instead. And I don't.
Well, all right. Let me just kind of objectively lay this out. So, if you're considering the cuts in Doge where they were eliminating waste and fraud, right? If you say FEMA, most people think disaster recoveries and whatever. If there was a portion of FEMA that was cut out that was housing illegal immigrants in New York high rises, I don't consider that FEMA. I consider that scam money that was ripped out. So that wasn't removing it from the disaster recovery. So that point of it, I'm still open to it being a cost savings without affecting the services of what FEMA can do. FEMA had full funding in North Carolina under Biden, and it took 3 years to get roads and communication and electricity back there. So I don't necessarily think it was a lack of funding.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard lots of situations where I feel like there was like North or South Carolina or something had flooding, and all these states that had these natural disasters that saw nothing.
Exactly.
Or it took a very long time.
Because they were spending all of the FEMA disaster money on the illegal immigrants to import voters and get them converted into your constituents.
This isn't they saw nothing under Trump.
Right.
They saw nothing.
So that would be an unfair one. And so the $300 million to fund his golf. The way that I picture this is that anytime Trump does something, he gets on an airplane, he has Secret Service, he has all of this. And so what you're comparing is cutting money for a FEMA department and spending more money to go play golf. If we held that to the standard of every president costing taxpayers more money by going to the beach or going to play golf or going to a rally or whatever, fine, fair. If we don't want the president to spend taxpayer monies on doing stuff, just hold them all accountable for the same thing. This is a very specific Trump playing golf version of it. So if I were looking at the costs on it, I would say, what is the mandatory part of that spending? Who would you be paying? Should it be that if Trump goes and plays golf, it's on his dime and he has to pay for all the security detail that wouldn't have needed to be there? I'm 100% cool with that. And so again, they probably do live in a little bit of luxury on us, and I'm not cool with that. I'm not okay with that. Mm-hmm. What was the third one?
How about sanctioning the deportation of citizens?
When does that happen?
What I'm wondering, and Julie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. What I think she may be saying is, I feel like somebody had pointed out an instance of actual legal citizens that get kicked out. Reason being is they could be here legally under a certain set of guidelines. You are here legally, but while you're here, you have to check in, you have to report your job, you have to do this, you have to report that, you have to report that. And if you don't, you're out of here. So people that are not doing what their legal, I don't know if it's like a green card or whatever, requires them to do, they now say, hey, you're here legally under the guidelines that you follow these rules. And when you don't, you're gone. You haven't, you're gone. I think that has now been a thing where people are like, but he's getting rid of legal citizens. Yeah, well, because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Well, that's breach of contract. So you only have the permission if you follow the guidelines. So you're at a comedy club and you're watching the show, you paid your ticket, right? Mm-hmm. And you misbehave and they kick you out of the comedy club. Well, you were permitted to be there. You paid your shit. Give me my money back, right? No, the contract is that you have to behave a certain manner in order to stay in that seat. It is a negotiation between the place and you. Mm-hmm. But second part of that, this is really dumb on Trump's part, really dumb, and the whole administration's part. If I went down to the Texas border and I erected an immigration due process facility, and all I did was take all the people and run them through enough due process to come to the conclusion whether or not they're necessary to be evacuated from this country. Take the legal process. You'd shut up every critic that there would be, right? And then it wouldn't take a bunch of money. I mean, all you got to do is take a bunch of judges, train them in immigration law and for the proceedings for getting due process of getting someone out there. And it would be walk through. Did you, here's your green card. Here, did you do all these things? Yes, no. What's the evidence that you didn't do? Cool, you're out. And just one at a time as a factory. of
Yeah.
an exporting factory.
Like one of them I heard is you are required, if you move, you are required to tell the state, the government, whatever, your new address. If you don't, breach of contract, you're out of here.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. That's for the people who have permission to be here under these guidelines. If you do not have permission to be here, if you are not given guidelines because you came illegally or under the radar, I don't care if you get due process. You skip due process coming in. It didn't matter to you then.
But in our system, you're not allowed to judge that unless you go before a court. To prove that you are, I guess. So who says that they were in breach of that contract? So if somebody came up to me and said, Joe, you're in breach of contract, you say I was, and I say I wasn't, we need a third party who can objectively either agree with me or agree with you. And if they agree with me, you're gone. If they're not, that's what I'm saying. Like all it would take is
so you could be like, here's where I filled out my stuff that I moved, but you guys didn't get it. Now we have a discussion.
What satisfies the proof that you breached your contract would be appearing before someone who is charged with deciding that. That's all it would take. And there would be such little effort to accomplish that one little element that would shut up all of the critics. They're probably right, but all it's going to take is one person who went through this massive exporting process and they got it wrong because a judge would have caught it where the ICE officials or whatever didn't. Right. But this is all considered super low hanging fruit. If they're like, this dude's here and he did go to court for this, that is in breach. I haven't lined those two things up, but if I did, I'd be right. So this one's an easy one. You're just gone because green cards are at the pleasure of the executive. Right. So if they don't have to have a whole lot of challenge in order to get you to not be here anymore because you were by invitation.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't need to address that one if you don't want. We can move on to Carter. Carter says, how about we judge FEMA and how they react under Trump versus how they react under Biden? Then we can see if FEMA is effective.
FEMA was just another money laundering operation that went to things other than disaster recovery, and Doge took a hacksaw to it and cut that stuff out.
Yep.
But every institution will be polluted by whomever is in power. So if we got money moving around and I need some money and I can figure out a way to get my money from that thing, they all do that. So you just got to starve it so that it's a very super small, heavily audited organization that nobody sees a little piggy bank over there and feels like crushing it for things that help them politically.
Yeah. And I heard an interesting point one time too, where like, when people on the left want to say, oh, he's just getting rid of all these people and they're citizens and he's kicking them out unfairly and he's just, all these people are leaving our country. I heard somebody say one time, why would the party that is all for pro-life, having more babies, repopulating, making sure there's enough people in this country for the things we should be doing, want to get rid of people randomly? Why would we want to kick out good law-abiding citizens? It doesn't make sense. Now, somebody could say, oh, well, they're Nazis, they're racist, they're jerks. They just want to get rid of foreigners and have this whatever. Okay, well, if that's the case, then why would it be so hard to believe then that the other party wants all them in because they can buy them, because they can persuade them, because they can get into power because of them? It's almost like, what makes sense? What makes the most sense? Why would Trump just be a jerk to be a jerk against what his whole party is preaching needs to happen?
Well, the setup isn't, and I wish a lot of liberals would really look at this, on an even keel. The Biden administration wanted those people here to capture them as voters. So they created a plastic slippy slide and they put baby oil in it. And they passed by all of the due process to get the most amount of those people in. So the Trump administration laid down a slippy slide and put baby oil in it to get those people out. Both of you did the exact same thing, right? So you can't be more outraged when on the outgo than the income, right? It's the equal strategy. You broke the laws, you broke the rules for the advantage, right? Do you think that the Trump administration sees the huge contingent of illegals that are going to be blessed by the Democrats as voters And that's the reason that he's so eager to get those voters out of the public so they don't start casting their votes. It's a very unpopular angle because every American's going to be like, don't devalue my citizenship and give them access to voters. So regardless if he's inspired by the fact that Republicans are at a disadvantage with all of those illegal immigrants in there, it still makes it more valuable to be a citizen. It ensures the elections aren't a bunch of people who are just voting themselves, benefits for doing it.
Yeah.
So I mind less if it doesn't have noble intentions, right? If it has less noble intentions on the outgo than the income.
Especially when it's so dumb, like, I can't think of the guy's name that went and visited Garcia in El Salvador, and they're all like, this man shouldn't have been kicked out. We're going to talk to him and we're blah, blah, blah. Like, of all the people you're claiming were unjustly kicked out, you go to the one that has controversy behind him. Show me the one that, hey, I was here legally. I did come legally. I was doing what I was supposed to do, and I messed up. I forgot to turn something in. I didn't state something. I didn't claim something. I didn't whatever. Why don't you go to that person to make a martyr out of?
Maybe it's not happening. Maybe the people that they're picking for the low-hanging fruit are so egregious that if you challenged it, you're going to look foolish.
Yeah, because they're going to be like, yeah, I did get kicked out because I was supposed to do this and I didn't. Oh, well, all right, well, we can't use you because that makes sense. Let's go to this guy and make a martyr out of him. We'll just look past the fact
I will tell you, though, that Trump is blessed by the intellectual level of his enemies because they do not do a good job. I feel as a person just looking at it from a third party's perspective, that there are truly things you can go after this dude where he is extremely vulnerable. And they never pick the ones that I would say, yep, that's it.
And every time something comes up, I just said it again the other day when I was looking at like the executive order involving schools and discipline. And then there was another one. I can't remember what it was, but I was just like, I literally said, they're going to lose again. Dems, you will lose again. You're not getting elected in 4 years again because you bring up the dumbest points that have no backing, that are talking points people are sick of hearing. We get something that makes perfect sense. You know, the Trump administration keeps calling it common sense. We're bringing common sense back. So when they present something and it looks like it makes sense. I don't see anything wrong with it. And instead of finding something that is actually applicable in any way, shape, or form, you bash it by putting out information that's not even true. Well, this thing is going to do this to kids. That's the most outlandish thing I've ever heard. No, it's not. And you just sealed your fate again. I think so many people are so sick of the ridiculous fear mongering that it's like you're losing all your credibility. You've got to find something smarter to run on or to push back with.
You know what this is? This is panic. All right, let me give you the math behind this. Okay, the Democrats needed those illegal immigrants to get citizenship to ever get elected again.
Yeah.
I saw California, if they actually lose the population that's predicted, they're going to lose 27 seats, right, of representation in the House of Representatives. And my numbers might be wrong, but if you start losing seats because the people who shouldn't be here anymore, those were inauthentic, and you built a coalition of people who shouldn't be in here. So when those disappear, you're going to be looking like, oh crap, like we lost 27 for sure Democrat voices in the legislature, right? Mm-hmm. By one move. Then you take all the apparatuses of all these government agencies and you rip out the way that Soros was able to seed some money in there and collect some government money and then fund Democrat operations. You get your funding source dried up by removing the waste and the fraud. Now you have less money to spend to get elected. Those are just two of the bigger reasons. Your third one here, they're not going to get elected again, right? And they know this unless these 80-20 ones are killer for them, because the reason they pick what they do is they're going after the 20% of people who will side with them, right? Mm-hmm. And if they pick the 20%, that's a losing percentage when it comes to elections, but they can't help themselves. They can't bail on that and moderate or go after the 80% side. They will have to admit defeat and that they were on the wrong side of this.
Yeah.
So,
all they have and all they do is they create an emotional response to things and they create victims. And Charlie Kirk even mentioned this when he was on Gavin Newsom's show, because I saw Gavin Newsom and Tim Waltz. They were like, they had a discussion. What is going on? Why are we not reaching people? What do we have to change? What do we have to do? And Charlie Kirk is like, all you guys do is create victims. Let's go ahead and fly a bunch of people into the country illegally, put them up in the fanciest hotels in New York City, give them cell phones, and basically pay for their vote. That's what you're doing. Why the heck else would you do it? And then if we have a criminal that gets kicked out of the country, we say, what a jerk you are. Look how nice we're being to people. Look at all the way you're being a jerk, when it doesn't make sense. You're creating this, they're victims. They were kicked out. They should have never been here. You brought them here because you wanted to create victims to shine a light on. Look what a jerk you're being. And it's like, oh my God, we're so sick of this happening. Like the executive order on the discipline. It states that apparently there was an order already in place from Biden that one race of students cannot be expelled, suspended, have the police called on them, any of these things, more so than any other race. Can't do it. All right. Obviously, we don't want to see favoritism or bias against one race over another. But what happens if you are in a classroom that does have a majority of a particular race, and you do have a handful of students that in every way, shape, or form deserve to be expelled, or maybe have authorities called on them, or need kicked out of the classroom to keep everyone safe? You can't do that because of their race. You can't protect the classroom because of their race. So they say, we're taking race out of it. If you are a danger to your classroom, if you are disruptive, if you are disrespectful, if you aren't there to learn and all you're doing is causing problems, you get kicked out regardless of race. Is there anyone that thinks that doesn't make sense? Would that not make sense? You are out. You are out. You are causing problems. You are out. I don't care the color of your skin. If you are causing problems, you're out. But it's like, well, look what you just did to that poor kid. Look what you just did. Let's make another victim. Look what you're doing to these poor kids, regardless of what their behavior was.
Well, the race prediction would be like, they only have so many cards in front of them, right? And they have to play one of those cards because it's the only ones they have, right?
Yeah.
And so what they would do is they'd hear you say that and say, okay, so no, you're not allowed to select and key in on some kind of race. You're going to just do it, without knowing who the person is. I got this race card here. I'm going to pull over. Systemic racism will say that the black kids will have a rougher time with your rule than the white kids. Haha, go see. And it's effective because people react outraged. Like that's a real thing. They almost have to have racism built into the structure, because if they ever lose racism, that card goes away and it's not effective anymore.
Yeah. Let's turn it around. Let's say you have a class where 75, 80, 90% of the class is white kids. There's just a couple African-American kids. And there's a handful of white kids that are being disruptive. They're being disrespectful. They're clearly not there to learn. Maybe they're beating up on the African-American kids. Maybe they're causing problems. Guess what? Sorry, according to your own order, I can't kick them out. I can't expel them because it would be more than the other race in the class. Would you not be like, this is bullcrap? Get them out of here.
Yeah, that's where DEI needs to go away, because we solved this. And if we just protect all classes and make the rules, apply to everyone, then you have real law.
Yeah.
If you have exceptions and asterisks, you don't have law anymore. All you've done is take racism at the bottom of the zero and move racism to the top of it, and you still have racism.
Yep. And that's the only thing the left can do is, here's a policy and we think it makes sense. Well, guess what? If you act on it, you're clearly a terrible person.
Right.
You're clearly racist.
But I'm telling you, that's all they have. They have to play that card. They have to keep racism alive, because if they lose that card, what other victim classes? I mean, you had transgender, you had women, you had minorities. Like, there are only a few of them where you can adopt enough people, convince them that they're a victim before they're like, hold up, dude. Like, how many of the younger group, the younger demographic, are going conservative across all races? That's got to petrify the Democrats, because they had them all convinced that the system was against them. All the rules are gunning at them, and you better come to us and we'll protect you from the evil systemic racism. Yeah. This generation's like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't trust your authority because I think you're just trying to own me and take control of my decision making. Let me look for myself to see if it's my poor decisions that are putting me in peril or the system is really out to get me.
Yeah, I think for years, the only thing that was stifling anything is I feel like for years, the people that saw things a certain way were too afraid to speak up. I'm too afraid to say, that doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem right. Or this policy feels a little contradictive to what we're trying to accomplish here. But you better not say that, because then you look like a bigot. You look like a racist. You look like a Nazi. You're a jerk. How could you? So our mouth got shut. Then Trump comes in. You have this brash, unapologetic, arrogant person that says, this is bull crap, and here's why. And I think it gave everyone else a voice to be like, yeah, I've been thinking that too, but I'm not allowed to say it or else I'm painted as a terrible person. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's the boat I'm in, is I was always feeling a little more liberal for years. And when things started to change and the party started to change and different policies no longer made sense to me, the moment I questioned, I was immediately shut down for even questioning it. And I went, this is bullshit. It's like, I am allowed to question. I'm allowed to say something. And unfortunately, this is why the Dems lost. And this is why they're going to lose again, is the pushback of, I have nothing more to say to you other than you are with us or against us. And if you disagree with us, you are the enemy.
So we just gave the Democrats the 3 reasons that they're going to lose. They have they can absolutely take this information because they know it too, and they can change their entire strategy so that they don't just go off into the ether, right? Mm-hmm. But they will not do it. They will fight and defend this piece of real estate, and that's why it's going to be really difficult without cheating, without skewing the numbers, for them to win a legitimate election in the future.
Yeah, and that's why we saw a lot of people talking about, why did Kamala Harris not go on podcasts, not do long form interviews? Why was it only little snippets here and there that were edited or on liberal news organizations? Like, because you saw one side that was like, I'll go talk to whoever you want me to talk to. Where do you want me to go on? We'll go on Rogan. We'll go on Fox. We'll go on NBC. We'll go on Gavin Newsom. We'll go wherever you want to go, and I'll answer anything you want to ask. And then you saw the left that was like, one interview, 1 hour, edited. Here are the talking points. And it's like, that says to me, you got nothing. You got nothing. Like, you can't even be open with us. Yep. You can't even face the criticism or the questions because you know that your answers won't make sense and people are going to call bullshit.
Regular people.
People.
Larry says, incredible. Are we listening to the same rhetoric? Yeah, he's just being a lying robot.
Larry is the usual. Yeah. There was a couple up top, I feel like maybe. Okay. Joe, please check your facts about FEMA.
Okay, I'm doing it right now. You start talking. I'm going to go check Doge Dog.
No, I got a vamp. And I don't know anything about FEMA either. But I do know that, again, the more I look into things, the more I see cuts aren't as bad as they get painted. They're like, oh, you're going to cut this. You're going to cut that. You're taking necessary aid or money or advantage away from needing people. And then it's like, well, then why? Why did they cut it? Why did they take things away? I don't know, because they're a jerk? No, you're going to have to give me more than that. It's probably more than just them being a jerk. There's got to be a reason.
All right. So going to Doge. Let's see. Where's FEMA?
Department of Education, Department of Labor, State Defense, Energy. Maybe while we're looking, Julie, give us some info you found about cuts to FEMA.
Yeah, there's a glare here. I will
I don't
will
even
do this
see
for next time. I don't see FEMA cuts at all. So well I'll look it up when I
Yeah.
have better access to it. If you've got some data for me, throw it at me. I'm open to it.
Carter says the only things the Dems have is hate. It won't work. The people are too smart. That is why correctly stated they will lose again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And they're the party that keeps saying they are against hate and Trump spews hate and we're all about love and acceptance. And it's like you are the opposite.
Yeah, see, I disagree a little bit with the hate, and I think it's more fear. I think the older generation was more susceptible because they were trusting, and it's easy to make an old person afraid. You just go up to them, tell them a bunch of BS, they're afraid, you control them now. Younger, that grew up on the internet, younger generations, they've heard and seen anything that you can throw at them. They're wise to how they can be controlled, and that's why you're not going to be able to levy at them. They're more open-minded, which means that they're going to challenge authority. And if you're an authority, like they might not listen to you no matter what you have to say.
Yeah, I feel like the more left, maybe the more woke someone is, the more hate they spew. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever seen those videos where you have someone like Michael Knowles or like Charlie Kirk go to like a college campus and Michael Knowles, to me, whether you like him or hate him, you've got to admit he remains calm and he remains respectful when he is debating someone. And you see these people protesting on college campuses with signs like basically want him dead. Like he has to have security. People want to see him dead. They call him all kinds of names. They yell and they picket and they say really mean things to him and about his family. And I hope your kid this and that. And it's like, I'm sorry, which was the party again that spews hate and is all about love and acceptance and is against? They'll be like, we're against hate. You're here to spew hate as you're out here saying and doing terrible things about him.
No, if you hate Hitler, that's a noble. Like it's a negative.
Yeah.
If you're Hitler and I hate you, then that's a good. So all they have to do is frame you as Hitler.
Yes.
Right? And now hating you is a virtue.
Yeah, you're the devil, so we're allowed to be.
So Michael Knowles is the devil, so it's my obligation to hate the hate. See what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And I even saw where like he was doing like one-on-one sit downs with someone. And he would explain how he feels about something. They would say something. He would, and it's very calm. And he says, well, no, because, and here's some information. They would just be like, ugh. He's like, but thank you so much for sitting with me and talking. I really appreciate it. And he'd go to shake the hand and they'd be like, leave. And I'm just like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. Like, wow. That's why. That's why you're going to lose again.
Patricia says one of the executive orders requires CDL holders to be proficient in English.
Yes, I did see that. Mm-hmm. You now
How do you feel about the English being the official language of the United States, and in order to operate here, you at least have to speak the official language?
It feels like it makes sense. I don't know why someone would want to live in a country and not learn the language. I feel like your life would be incredibly difficult if you didn't. Like, I don't understand a pushback as to why it'd be about, hey, I moved to this country and I'm required to learn the language. To me, that's obviously you are. Like, how do you get by if you don't? Do you disagree?
I feel both ways. Like, I don't like government telling people what they can and can't do. If I bear the responsibility, so let's just say I hate the US dollar. I'm going to be in the United States and I'm only going to use Canadian dollars, right? Mm-hmm. Now, my decision to be different and harder than it has to be, I can't inconvenience someone else for what I want to do that's harder. So if I want to come here, not speak any English, well, there's some things that I can't systemically do because I'm not participating in the status quo of where I'm at. You don't go into someone's house and I'm like, hey, I know you don't smoke here, but I do. And I would like you to allow me to do my thing. And you're like, no, you could go home and smoke. You can smoke outside, but I don't change the rules of my house because you want to. So if you're selling candy bars and I got my Canadian dollars, right? And I'm like, I want to buy your, this is my foreign language. I want to buy your candy bars, but I have my Canadian dollars, right? And you're going to say, I take US dollars, and you're going to have to go do some kind of bank transaction to give me the thing that I accept, which means it's easier if you just had US dollars, but it's so long that you do all the legwork and you come to a conclusion that it's harder to do the thing and it's not really worth it, right? Then you inspire people to do the easy thing instead of push against the hard thing.
Yeah. And I get it. Like, to have the government make you, that's one thing. But yeah, I mean, I've been in instances through other jobs that I was dealing with a customer or client or whatnot that didn't speak English, that did not have an ID in our country, that did not have a lot of things. And the whole interaction is so unnecessarily difficult that I want to be like, do you enjoy this? Like, is this, you had to be driven here by someone. You have to bring someone with you because you don't know what I'm telling you and you can't communicate to me. So you have to only come in when you have someone that can help you. If I need your ID for something, like one time it was a medical office and you don't have one, well, now it gets a little more challenging as well. And now we have to discuss payment, and that you also don't understand. And so it's like, why do you want to live like this? I don't get, like,
but that's the thing. Like, the permission would be, let's just say, if in order to get into this country, I have a test that's written in English and you have to pass the test in order to submit your application, right? Bearing the burden on the person that doesn't know English would have to bring their enabler, either technology or whatever, and I would have to satisfy the same test that everybody else would. And if I can either wait and not apply until I've learned enough English to pass the test, or I can bear the burden on my own and make it so that I don't demand to you and say, you better write one in Spanish. It's like, no, there's one test and you got to earn passing that test to become a citizen. Yeah. So I have no problem with, especially if you have to go through toll stations and gas stations and interface with transportation officers and also police officers and people that are looking at your logs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. To me, I feel like to be a truck driver and to have the responsibility, it's probably pretty important to read and understand English.
Right.
How do you even know where you're going? Like, the road signs and the information, if there's a detour, if there's something happen,
so the responsibility is on the, I agree that English should be the single language. Like, the US dollar is the single currency, and any accommodations you need, you have to bring them and bear the burden of them.
Yeah.
End of story.
Julie says, listen to Chris Murphy in Congress yesterday about the budget bill. Deporting a 4-year-old that was born here that has stage 4 cancer is hateful.
I don't believe that's to be true. I think I think the mother in this story took their kid. So I don't think we went after a 4-year-old and said, that's the one we're taking right now.
Yeah.
Right?
That's that example of, let's make something look like you're a terrible person.
Yes.
Okay, Julie, why was the 4-year-old deported? Why did that happen?
Tom Homan had the best example of it.
Yeah.
Right? So you're driving drunk, right? And you've got a kid in the back seat. Now, that kid didn't do anything, but it is now your responsibility, and anything you do, right, transfers to the kid. So is it you who made the bad decision and are here illegally? Yep. Is the cop for then pulling you over and doing what is due to a person that's driving drunk? And if the kid is the casualty, it's not the cop's fault. It's the person that did the illegal thing.
If a guy broke the law, if he killed someone, if he stole, he robbed somebody, whatever, and the police come to his house to arrest him, but I have a child.
Exactly.
Okay.
You should have a good day. You should have been a responsible adult and protect your child by making better decisions. Yes. That would be my response.
And then he always says, everybody says we're breaking up families. We're not. Your child can come with you.
You broke the freaking law. How is the lawbreaker the one that is the victim here? How?
He could say, well, guess what? Now your 4-year-old's in foster care. You just lost your kid. Bye, because you're out of here and he's staying. Or we won't break up your family. Take them with you. Yeah,
that's the empathy.
And it's not our fault that you broke the law.
I'm telling you, like, when you issue tough love, even if it's with your own kids, there's an argument to be made that it would be easier to not do the tough love.
Yeah.
But what you do is you allow bad behaviors to propagate because you've supported them. Now,
Yeah.
so anyway.
So, Julie, if someone broke into your house, robbed you, and held you at gunpoint and traumatized you for the rest of your life, maybe even, God forbid, hurt someone you love. But you know what? When you go to press charges, you find out they have a sick child who's fighting cancer. Do you let them go? All right, free pass. Doesn't matter what you did to me. Doesn't matter what you did to my loved ones. Doesn't matter what you did to my livelihood. Free pass. You got a sick child. No! You're like, I don't even care. Look what you just did. Get out of here.
Yep.
Carter, Julie says, immigrants do assimilate and learn the language. History has shown that. Right? In some cases. Not always.
Let me give you another example that doesn't have the sick cancer kid that gets caught up in this, but how you would judge this and how you'd form your opinions if it were you who was the person that was being victimized. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's just say somebody broke into your house, right?
Yeah.
They broke the law. They broke into your house, but while they were there, they made you dinner, right? And they vacuumed your living room floor. Now the police come, right? Mm-hmm. And are you going to be on the side of being able to forgive the break-in side of thing because there were some things that you liked and benefited? You're like, no, spare room. It's all yours. You cooked me dinner. Or are you going to get a little fixated on the origin of why they were there in the first place, which is they broke into my freaking house. I don't care what they did. Arrest them.
I might be like, thank God they weren't violent and didn't hurt us. But they're clearly mentally ill.
You broke the law.
They need removed from society. Or else, what happens if they break into the next house because they're mentally ill and they get shot by the homeowner?
But in no other personal example will you justify and overlook the origin of the law break because there was some ancillary, benefit from it somewhere. No one else would judge it like that.
Yep. You see how Democrats twist things? Nobody deported a 4-year-old. Would the option be to leave the 4-year-old at home without their parents? Half-truths are dangerous. Julie says the 4-year-old was put on the deportation plane before lawyers could get to them. Get to them to do what? For what? To put them in foster care? To take them away? Because then, you know what you're saying? They're breaking up families. They took the 4-year-old away.
This is the card that will be played over and over again as they search through any storyline that draws at your heartstrings and takes accountability from the people who broke the law to begin with, right?
Yeah.
If we put it on the bad, tough love people who are doing the right thing versus the person that freaking broke the law and put their families in danger.
Yep, that's why Garcia was made such a martyr. Oh my gosh, he shouldn't have been kicked out. He was a good person. He was a dad. He was this and that.
I just don't understand.
Like, one, he was here illegally. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. That's not, was he a member of the gang? Was he not a member of the gang? Was he wearing gang clothing? Was he not wearing gang clothing? All that maybe can be debated. It is factual information he was here illegally, number one. Number two, it is factual information his wife had a police report against him, accusing him of things. All of that is just ignored to say, oh, a Maryland man was kicked out of the country. How sad.
But I ponder this, and I know the answer, but I still ponder it. Why is this the hill that you are looking to die on? Like this one. Like I don't understand why Julie, who is a reasonable person in some departments, are so willing to go to bat for people who are lawbreakers, who are not here legally and commit crimes here. Why is that your choice?
Yeah, because there's nothing else. Nicole says, from what I understand, the mother had the choice to put them in the care of someone she chose or take them with her. She chose the latter. Oh, wait. So the mother wanted the child to come with her? Is the mother a bad guy?
I don't know. The headline is way more dramatic if it's Trump rips 4-year-old out of the country who has cancer.
He takes the family away and boots the kid and sends the kid on a plane without the attorney saying, yeah, they need to leave the country, and here's your kid. And
Why? I don't even care about this issue. I really don't. But the ignorance on it is so annoying that it just irritates me enough that I want to say stuff about it.
do you know, can you think of a legitimate hill a Dem would reasonably want to die on? Like, we hear all the ridiculousness of like criminals in the country and should men be allowed to play in sports and all these like really sort of left ideas that I think are now starting to dwindle as we realize that left and right both are starting to agree on some things. Is there something you can think of that would be like, Dem's got 100% point here, you should run on this?
Medicine, insurance, banking, very non-emotional issues that need both sides to come to some common ground on. That if we're like, all right, people die every day from medical that they can't afford. And so why is the system keeping so many people out of getting the care that they need, right? There aren't many people who are going to be like, oh, let's just let them die, right? That would be a hill that we're like, okay, no matter what we do, we got to figure out a way to be able to afford it and to take care of those people. We're on it. That would be a hill that I'd be like, worthwhile.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Julie says she tried to call. Oh, we're sorry, Julie. We didn't even see your call come in.
I'll try again. I'm
Our
sorry.
phones never work here. She says the mother was not given a choice, according to the lawyer. Okay. Again, if the mother and father were criminals, broke the law, did something wrong, broke a rule, whatever, and they were being kicked out, should the child stay here alone in foster care, or should the child go be with their family? And why does it even matter when they were being kicked out for breaking the law?
You know what I think they should do? Because I'm so tired of talking about this. Set the example of this month of taking the low-hanging fruit out, okay? And then Trump gets in front of the podium, super serious, and says, listen, you see what's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. If there are any families here that don't want to go through that and be a casualty of this process, submit yourself to the authorities, and we will pick a slow, methodical way to make sure everybody is complete. Self-deport, but let's do it instead of rounding you up in super fast fashion. Let's take our time and make sure everybody is taken care of. If they did that, right, then all they would have to do is get the big criminals out of here. So if that person got chosen, the person they're tagged along with broke some major laws. They are not going after people who just happen to be here. These are people that break multiple, really bad versions of our law. So I don't really feel as much empathy because they caused it. But there's going to be some lesser things. I came across the border. I got my papers. I haven't broken any laws. I'm here illegally. How are you going to deal with me? You're going to rip my kid away too? That's where I want them to pause and do a much easier, better version with my Texas due process special immigration court.
Oh, because of course you don't ever hear them saying, you'll hear things like, well, Elon Musk made a whole bunch of cuts and people who shouldn't have been cut got cut, or RFK did away with all kinds of stuff. And then you'll almost always hear, there was one recently, RFK had said, hey, I think we made too many cuts and we're going to start bringing some people back. Hey, we went ahead, did a blanket fire. Now we're rehiring people back. They don't want to say that. They don't want to say, oh yeah, after they did this, then they went ahead and they made this situation right. And they made this situation right. No, it's only mass cutting, mass firing, mass deportations for no reason other than what? They're just all jerks. They just all feel like being jerks and feel like doing stuff for absolutely no reason. That doesn't make any sense.
I just kind of looked at that article to see who it was and what they did wrong to be deported. Because I think in the story, I think we'd be less likely, right, to be even a little bit engaged in this if we knew how bad the charges that got them on that plane. And I looked at the article and there wasn't a name, nor were there crimes that were committed. That would be helpful in the context of things.
It would also be helpful to know even what the kid's situation is. I'm sure it could be bad, and I don't want to say it's not. If it's not, it very well could be. But wouldn't it also be interesting to be like, here's a kid with a minor health issue. Let's play it up to make him look worse, so they look more of a monster. Don't tell me that doesn't happen.
Right. But and that's why I feel bad for Julie, because obviously she's using her heart in this, and they're using her for political gain by getting her totally upset that so much that she wants to defend criminals who have hurt citizens, right? And should not be here for the sake of a kid who's now put in harm's way by the bad decisions of the parents.
Yeah, and that's why you hear that term I used to hate, being called a bleeding heart liberal. Oh, you just feel bad for everyone and you want to, and then the left takes the stance of we're the party that cares for people and we have love and we have this and that. And I used to relate to that idea until you saw that was not the case. Maybe it used to be, but it's not anymore. And it's now they're still trying to put that narrative out there, even though it's not true, just so that they can kind of keep these people thinking, hey, feel bad for them, feel bad for them, feel bad for them, and pay no attention to what's actually happening or what makes sense.
All right, let's wrap this up. We did well. We were all over the place, and thanks everybody who's listening out there.
Yeah,
Julie, you're always awesome as volleying stuff at us. I really appreciate you being part of this show. Sorry we couldn't get you on the phones. I didn't even see it come up. So
yeah, next time for sure.
Hold on, but there might be one more.
Okay, Julie says, "BS, Joe. I'm taking a look at the long game. You talk about a slippery slope."
What long game? The long game, as in the tier. And I'm almost going to be on Julie's team here, because all of what if what is happening right now just becomes tyrannical rule, completely tyrannical rule, meaning that you have an executive branch that has amassed so much power, it can just act on its will, right? And there's nobody big enough or strong enough or vocal enough to push back against it. So at the end of this, I believe in what's happening right now, but they need to snip the nuts of the executive branch. So this isn't possible after they clean up this mess.
That is the one thing I will say. If the Dems are going to do anything,
shrink it, baby.
Well, they got to
it so bad.
Well, no, they have to play up that angle. Not that everybody is an uncaring, heartless monster, but that, hey, all we're saying is watch, are these steps to lead to something like a tyrant overtaking everything, doing away with the rule of law, just basically coming into all-encompassing power, and all of us were in this slow boil and we were the lobsters that didn't notice it, and they're all noticing it. It's a long shot, but they're gonna have to just run on it.
I hope you notice it, Julie, when the Democrats are in control and they're wielding the tyrannical powers that you can't picture a Republican being able to do the same. We need both sides to say, yeah, way too much influence on the rest of us. They have way too much power to be able to just do anything they want. And we need to shrink that government down so it can't even do it. Not that it's legally protected against, but it just doesn't have the power or the reach to be able to do the things you're afraid of doing.
Yeah. Rather than trying to find a political figure that can be deemed trustworthy enough, just make them not able to do anything like that.
Yeah, you the executive branch shouldn't be able to say, you're a doctor and I want you to render services for free because this person wants it. Nobody should have that power. Just like the president can't say, you know what, I don't like Austria, so I'm going to just throw a tariff with and bypass Congress. I don't like the fact that they can do it without intervening, like having another branch of government to get in there and say, hold up, dude, at least we had a check of power somewhere. And there's through executive orders, and all the last 5 presidents have abused the crap out of executive order. I want to see that come to an absolute end.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
All right.
It was a great show.
All right. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on